paranormal, UFOs, extraterrestrials, conspiracy theories. Sit down, buckle up, hold on tight. You're about to listen to Out of the Box Podcast with hosts Jim Andre and co-host Bradley Powers from Esoteric Hours. And this is the moment you've all been waiting for. Let's get ready to rumble. Hey everybody, here we are on Out of the Box Podcast. I'm your host Jim Andre, my co-host Bradley Powers, and we have a special guest here tonight, Malvin Larsen from Fort Myers, Florida. Originally from Fairhaven, Massachusetts. That's where him and I met one day. And he's a very interesting character, I must say. And I'd like to give him a little time to explain a little bit about himself.
Yeah. So over to you, Melvin, to share some of your phenomena.
Yes, well, I've been in the supernatural since I was 5 years old. God spoke to me in my grandmother's bedroom, and my whole life is all about supernatural experiences. And many secrets have been revealed to me of the universe and of Earth and things of this, like the pyramids and things like that, that we don't have an understanding of. I've been given the knowledge to understand how they were built, things like that. God is real, the supernatural is real, black holes, those things. I've been given the knowledge of what they are and what they do. And so I'm just trying to share some of this information with the world. And I want to reveal a little bit about the pyramids because everyone wants to know about them and what they're about. And I can enlighten them with some of the things that I'll tell them tonight that will make perfect sense to them, because you can't use today's technology and build those pyramids. But they didn't build those pyramids with today's technology. They had a different form of technology that was able to make those pyramids with ease, but we can't think out of the box. And so I want to reveal a little bit about that.
It's very interesting. And another interesting part of you is when I met you, of course, you appeared as Jesus. When we met in Fairhaven, Massachusetts, about 5 years ago at least?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that was a very interesting meeting. And you sort of like validated something before I walked away.
Right.
Do you remember what that was?
Oh, yes. You asked if you could do a YouTube video of me. I was dressed up with Jesus, and there ended up being 4 people, you and another guy, and then a guy and his mother showed up, so there was 4 of us. And while the 4 of us were talking in a group, I got a download from the supernatural that you, Jim, had a silver cross in your pocket with the corners wore off because you've been carrying it around for over 30 years.
That's
and
right.
You asked me, what did you say?
Yeah.
And then you opened your wallet and you showed me the silver cross with the edges wore off that you've been carrying around for over 30 years.
Yes, and I still have that in my wallet today. So I've been carrying this cross around for about 45 years. And it is a metal cross. And
it is silver.
Leather. Yeah, it is silver. It's wrapped in leather. It's been wrapped in leather all this time, but it's obviously satin to wear. And he sort of like validated something with me before we parted ways that day. What he said was, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure, go ahead." And he asked me, he said, "Have you been carrying around a silver cross in your wallet for over 30 years?" And I have been, and I had been. And that really blew my mind. So there was some sort of validation that, he's the real deal and not someone that's delusional.
because there was 4 of us, and you actually were wearing a gold necklace with a cross on it. So why would I pick you out of 4 people when you got a cross around your neck and tell you have a silver cross? Could have been a wooden one. It could have been a gold one.
I still got that.
But I said silver.
Yeah, I still got that gold cross.
And yet, right. And so that was I'm not psychic. I get visions. I get downloads of information. I get downloads of things that I need to know about. Let me share a story from the other night. I was out doing my Jesus thing, had my bicycle, met a guy who was a Christian. I told him about a riddle that God and I play riddles. And the riddle was, I found a dead hummingbird. Who ever finds a dead hummingbird? No, you never find a dead hummingbird on the ground. And so I knew that was a key word to a riddle. A half hour later, I'm walking down Route 6, and I find like 1,000 feathers laying in the gutter. So the riddle was, birds of a feather flock together. That was the riddle that I was playing with God that day. Now, this gentleman I met the other night, I was telling him about this riddle, and he guessed the riddle. He guessed, I said, hummingbird is a key word and feathers. And so he figured out the riddle, and right after he figured it out, it started snowing feathers where we were standing.
Wow.
There were feathers falling out of the sky right around us.
It's amazing. Now, before you...
all
right, go ahead. Finish up. Go ahead. You were saying?
You're breaking up or something. I can't hear you.
Okay, go ahead. Finish your story.
I'm not getting anything right now.
Can you hear me, Bradley?
It's breaking up.
Okay. I can hear you, Jim. Can you hear me, Mel?
It may be my phone. My phone is real crappy.
Yeah.
I can hear you, Mel. Can you hear me?
I'm going to try moving in a different spot. Try speaking now.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, I can hear you right now.
All right. Okay,
can you hear me?
Yeah. Now, what were you saying after the feathers started falling?
You're sounding like a robot. For some reason, my phone is not coming over clear.
Oh, boy.
My phone is...
Try going out and come back in again.
All right, I'm going to go out and come back.
Come back in. All right.
Okay. Well, how long have you been waiting to get Malvin Larsen on the show, Jim? Quite a while, isn't it?
Quite a while, yeah. Facebook users saying the link on the event page is not working. You had to go to my profile page to access it.
Wow.
I don't know why it wouldn't be working. It's probably a Facebook glitch.
Yeah, as usual.
Well, Mel can find his way back. There he is. He's coming in now. Any better?
Oh, yeah, much louder. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Really good. Yeah.
Oh, this is way better. I must have had a bad connection because I could barely hear you. And now it's like, yes. So did you hear what I said about the story?
Yes, sir. Now you were mentioning something about what the man was saying or something after the feathers started falling.
Well, he was going through a divorce. He was having issues with his marriage, and he was very distraught. And so we were fellowshipping, and I told him about my connection with God and these riddles, and he guessed the riddle about birds of a feather flock together, and it literally started snowing feathers around us, right over our head. And he picked up some of the feathers, and at that moment, he believed that I was connected to God and the supernatural, because you can't just talk about feathers and they start falling out of the sky right where you are, not anywhere else, right over
Right,
our head. And he picked
right,
them up. And I said, God is letting you know that your angels are around you.
right.
And
And it's
so
pretty.
that is my life every day with stories like that.
Now it's pretty fascinating, your story. I like to present a picture here of what you actually look like before your revelation of becoming the essence of Jesus, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, no, because there's a huge transformation that most people wouldn't even believe or understand. There's a picture on Facebook or the internet of this picture here on my license, and then the picture of Jesus. Yeah, that's on my license before my possession, meaning being possessed by Jesus. This is what I
Right.
used to look like.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And
Now, yeah, now I
do
want
you
to
have
put
a
a picture up of how you look.
yeah, put
Um,
yeah, now.
all right, hold on.
Of course, I'm wearing a hat, sun, and glasses, but yeah, if you got a picture of me dressed with a crown of thorns or just dressed as Jesus,
I'm trying to get to it here. Hold on.
yeah, it's all up to you, because this is all new to
There we
me.
go.
And
There it is.
okay, and that's the new me after this, let's just say,
Transformation.
intervention
Yeah.
happened to me, where my life became really amazing, because now I have this living entity inside of me. There's a movie called The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and it's about a girl who gets possessed by a demon in Hollywood. It's based on true facts, and Hollywood made a reenactment of this movie. I would like people, anybody's listening, to watch that movie, and I can verify that Hollywood got it correct, because the same situation happened to me, only instead of a demon possessing me, it's Jesus possessing me.
Now I find this particular picture very interesting.
Okay, let me explain this story. The gentleman that is next to me was in Iraq. He was with his troop, and they were getting ready to raid this building. And he's telling me the story that he's getting ready to go through a doorway in this building, and this force pushed him back and pushed him down on the ground. And just as he hit the ground, a mortar came by and blew up the door.
Wow.
And so while he's telling me this story, his wife takes two pictures of us. And after we finished talking, he said, "Let me see how the picture came out." And you can see in the picture, that's an angel in that picture.
Wow. That's amazing.
And that angel was to verify his story about God was watching over him, pushed him down on the ground, and protected him from being blown up. And that angel shows up in the picture while he's telling me the story. And what other way can you explain that? Because if you look at it, it kind of looks like an angel. If it's part of the picture, but if there's more of the picture, you can almost see the head, the wing, and like the gown of what an angel would look like.
Yeah, that's
But
pretty amazing.
it's one of the pictures that's one in a billion, because my other pictures don't have that image in there. I have other
Facebook.
pictures of different images, but not of like this.
Right. And one Facebook user saying, Jim, the event link isn't working. No one can access it. That must be a Facebook glitch.
As usual, yeah.
Okay.
There's always something. But we got some viewers. Okay,
Yeah.
let's see.
Donny Lothridge is in the house. Hi there, Donny. Rick Makaroff, Bradley Chester. Thank you for joining us, along with Johnny Mark and a few others.
Yeah, so those are pretty interesting pictures.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I have so many pictures and so many stories. Every day, there's a new story to my list of something supernatural happening. And I live an amazing life because every day is supernatural to me. And I just try to get people to understand there's so much more going on than we realize, but our eyes are closed and we're just oblivious to things that are happening around us. But the reason we're not aware of, we don't open the channel for the supernatural to come in. Meaning,
Right.
when you have an encounter, there's a woman on Jennifer Marshall. She's a host that does like decodes mysteries, like Bigfoot and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And she's on national television. And I tried to reach her, and she goes in a house in Massachusetts, and there's a presence of something in this house, and she gets terrified and she leaves. And there's a perfect example. She was involved with the supernatural at that moment, and she got afraid and left.
Right.
And if you go online and download her bio, meaning there's a bunch of YouTube videos of her talking about her story and some of these videos that she's made, or these encounters like UFOs and stuff. And you can see this one video. It's up in Massachusetts, not Salem, but somewhere in that area, where they're interviewing in this house, and she's literally terrified. You can see it. And so this is something that I'm aware of and been involved in my whole life.
Always wanted to create. Oh, sorry. So I've got a question for you, Mel. How long have you felt the essence of Jesus?
Excuse me?
How many years have you felt the essence of Jesus in your life?
Well, it's been 12 years when I've had the encounter, meaning the presence of him, since I was 5. But it was like someone I was talking to. 12 years ago is when I came, let's just say, abducted by him, meaning we've become one together. He's actually inside of me.
Vic Makaroff has a question for you.
Yes.
Having the presence of Jesus within you, do you also possess stigmata?
I don't have the stigmata. There are things that I don't have, again, that he would have, but I have a lot of what he does have. I believe he's not revealing certain things. Like I thought I was going to walk on water one night in Massachusetts, and I didn't. But I believed I could, because that's part of the supernatural, is believing in anything, and it didn't happen. But if it did happen that night and I did walk on water, my life would be totally different. It would be, I can't even describe what it would probably be like if I actually did that. So I believe some of the things that I don't have or do is because he's not revealing it. But I know he's in there inside of me. And I know when he speaks, I know like there's been several exorcisms that have happened through my body. I didn't do them. He did them through my body, but I was there and I witnessed it. And so there's been encounters that I know he's inside of me and he can do whatever he wants, but he doesn't do, let's just say, everything as he did 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we have a Facebook user saying that the link isn't working for anyone, and they gave directions in the chat on how to access it. Thank you very much for that, Facebook user.
Gary Smith, that was. Thank you, Gary Smith. Hi there,
Yes,
Layla.
yeah, I don't have his name on my end, so I don't. So there's some glitches here tonight. But did you want to get into the pyramids now and the Egyptian culture?
Well,
Malvin?
yeah, there's a couple things like we've admitted that we don't even have the technology to build the pyramids today. And they weren't built by aliens, as some people say they were aliens that built them. When, if you look up Coral Castle in Florida down by Miami, Lee Scallion, something to that effect, was a little man that was 100 pounds back in 1921, 22, something like that, built Coral Castle, ton stones. And he said that he knew the secrets of the pyramids, which was levitation.
Right.
Because there were people that used to spy on him, and there were some stories floating around about these two kids that used to watch him at night, and they said that they saw him floating rocks.
Yeah, and I believe he did that with some type of sound frequency.
Well, that's the levitation comes in technology that, but it is through vibrations, frequencies, and just because we haven't, let's say, discovered the frequency of that, doesn't mean that it's not possible. It's just like jungle, and a tribe that never been out of, never saw a phone, never saw a refrigerator, and turn water into ice. We want aliens or gods, and yet we know that that's just technology. And so the Egyptians, they had another type of technology that is foreign to us, which was levitation for one. There were some pictures I wanted to send. There's an obelisk in the ground that's over 500 miles away in a quarry that cracked, and it's left there. And you can see that this thing has scallop-shaped cuts in it as they're like digging it out of the ground. Right. They weren't using chisels and stones. They had the ability, this is where the secret comes in. They had the ability to turn stone into a softer material. And so because the mystery is, well, how did they cut stuff that was like precision cut when all they had was copper tools? Well, if I brought a block of cheese out and I had a copper blade, I could cut that piece of cheese like a knife into a little square block that would be precision.
Right.
And so you don't need any special tools. All they had was copper tools. But if you see, their technology wasn't lifting 50-ton stones, and their technology wasn't cutting granite or limestone. They were changing the frequency of the rock, just like you would change the molecular structure of water when you freeze it into a solid, they use that same technology to make a rock softer that they could actually cut it with a knife, so to speak, because the only tools we found are these copper blades that look like kind of like a big knife. And that's what they did. They cut this stuff.
They could have probably liquefied it and used a what do they call those in other words, like if you got liquid water and you put it in the fridge, you have an ice cube.
Right, you would have an ice cube. So you turned a liquid into a solid.
Right.
So now
if they like you say, if they softened that up or liquefied it, they could have molded it, put it in a mold.
Well, they didn't mold it. See, because there's evidence in the ground of these obelisks. There's one that you can see where, like, if I took a block of cheese and I took a spoon and I take the spoon and I keep scooping on the side and make these little scallops, it would leave the same mark that is in these obelisks in the ground. And what they had was a technology through vibrations, most likely, that turned the stone into a softer material. Right. So it was easy to cut. And now this is where people are ignorant and closed-minded because, oh, that's impossible. Well, you know what? It was impossible to make a phone and talk to the other side of the world 200 years ago, and yet we can do it. Right. And so the way they were able to cut these stones was to change the frequency of the stone. And there's one site. If you look at the site of all these big stones and you look at them, it would be like if you stacked up a bunch of marshmallows and then pushed your hand down on the marshmallows and they try to like gooze out in the middle. And all these stones in this structure are all bellied out in the middle. They're actually like rounded in the middle and right. meet where they were cut and put together. And so when you could change the structure of a stone, and what I believe happened in this structure was they made the mistake of trying to make the stone back into a hard material again. They got the wrong frequency, which made it softer. And then all the stone started to like squish out because now the weight of the stone is actually too like almost turning it into water.
Crushing the rest of them, yeah.
It was crushing them. And so now they're all bellowed out in the middle, and you would never cut a stone that way. And yet all these stones are all just like if you took a marshmallow and you put your hand on it, it would squeeze out the sides in the middle, but the sides would still be where they were. And this structure, all the evidence is there. All you have to do is have an open mind to look at the clues, just like the bird and the feathers. You look for the clues, and there's an obelisk in the ground that shows they didn't pour these things. They had to carry something 500 miles from this granite quarry. See, because there's one in the ground, and the granite quarry was 500 miles away from the pyramids. So how did they move it from the quarry to the pyramids? Well, again, if they knew levitation, which I know they did, just like the guy in Coral Castle, he knew how to levitate things. And so now it's just the Earth is a magnet. It's a giant magnet. And you know, if you take two magnets and you put them together, they stick together and they attract each other. But you know, if you take those magnets and you turn them around to the opposite poles, now they repel. You can't make them touch together. They actually push themselves away from each other. So now imagine you have the knowledge to reverse the pole of everything on Earth. So now instead of being attracted to the Earth, it's repelled against the Earth. It would just be floating on air, and you could just push it right down the road. Or, of course, there is no road, but push it down over these through the sand and the jungle and wherever they had terrain they had to go through, that's just going to float on air, and they just push this giant thing where they got to go. Now, 500 miles is a long way to go to get there, but if you don't have to carry it and you can just push it, that's a lot easier. And so that's how the guy in Coral Castle built his castle. He levitated all the stones. He said he knew the secrets of the Egyptian. And
Okay,
so he's evidence.
Now we got somebody
Go ahead.
asking. Somebody is saying they'd like to know what little black box was on the tripod that he was using for Coral Castle.
Yeah, that's Gary Smith.
Well, see, that's the secrets that he didn't reveal. In his notes, he said he left the clues to levitation. He has a book that left all the let's just say secrets to levitation, but he left it to be decoded because it really is a weapon of mass destruction used in the wrong way. But he left the secret, and that black box, if you look in his I don't want to call it a laboratory, but a building, he had this machine that had a wheel with these like posts on it, and it used to spin. And there was a copper wire that went from this wheel outside to the tripod into that box and then down to the ground. And I believe that box has something to do with altering the frequency of the wheel that was inside of his, let's just say, his shed, that the energy went through the copper wire to the box, and then that box reversed the polarity of magnetism, and therefore the ground now, you can levitate something on the ground because it's not magnetized, it's reversed, and now it will float. And because the tripod didn't lift the stones, because how do you move the stone from wherever it is to the tripod? And then there's all these stones all over this acre of land that he moved there. So how did the tripod have any use for moving? It didn't. The tripod was just a way of creating the levitation, and it was probably up in the air because we know Tesla did some research with electricity, and energy is in the air. It's all around us. And so that box was probably catching energy up in the air like an antenna. When we want to get a signal on a TV or a radio, we have an antenna up in the air because it catches the frequency. So the black box was probably catching the energy, running it down the tripod into the ground, and then he may have had other devices that he put in the ground near something when he wanted to levitate it. But there were two kids that said they saw him moving stones through the air.
Yeah.
So we know that was obviously a technology that he discovered.
Yeah, we have a Facebook user. We have a Facebook user here saying, "Hello, Uncle Jim," but I have no idea who it is.
It is
okay.
Michael H. Barryball.
Oh, how you doing, Mike?
Also, the levitation, Mel, do you reckon that was created by the mind using telekinesis, or do you reckon that was music creating vibrations to cause elevation?
Yes, but it's like, see, there are times that God speaks to me, and it's not in a voice. Well, it is in a voice, but it's not like you and I talking. It's like in my mind, like telepathic.
Yeah.
For example, one night I was coming back home. Long story short, there was an owl in front of my door in my storage unit. And as I was riding my bike up to my door, I saw this wild owl in front of my door. And in my mind, before I stopped the bike as I'm riding up, in my mind, I said, if it is you, meaning God, I will be able to pet you. So I telepathically spoke to this uh, owl through my mind. And so I got up, I got off my bike, and I slowly walked over to this wild owl. And I bent down and I was laughing because I know this is God in the form of an owl. And I'm laughing and I'm stroking his back, and my face is like inches away from his beak. And I'm like, are you lost, Mr. Owl? And I'm cracking up laughing because no one will believe that I'm speaking to God in the form of an owl, and I'm rubbing his back, and he's not hissing or anything. And so that was a telepathic moment where I spoke to an animal, which was God in form of an owl. And so I didn't need to use my mouth to communicate. So that's like a telepathic connection.
Some say, Mel, the architecture of the pyramids was the super god of the moon, Thoth. Who do you think the architecture of the pyramids was?
Well, I don't have all the valuable information, but there is a special alignment to them. There's passageways. They all have significance, and I almost believe they were time machines that allowed them to travel from one dimension to another. And that's why they believed in the afterlife, because they were actually able to cross through other dimensions. Now, it sounds crazy, but it's only crazy because you've seen it. But if you saw it in action, I believe that may have something to do with that. It also could be a power plant that captures energy in the atmosphere, and there were things under the ground that they believe was forming electricity where they live in the area that they're in. He hasn't revealed all the information to me, but I still think there was some form of, let's just say, connecting to other dimensions, because anything is possible. Anything. It's just a matter of, Thomas Edison said, nothing is.
Oh, that's a shame, isn't it?
Oh, you got bounced out.
Got a question here from a couple of questions from Vic. Hi there, Donnie Randall. Thank you for joining us. And Michael H. Barryball says the pyramids were built on ley lines. Yeah, and I believe there's a giant vortex there, as well as there is.
Yeah, they're in perfect alignment with the cosmos as well.
Yeah, agreed. They say they're in perfect alignment with Orion's belt as well.
Right. I think he may have a problem with his internet connection. Trying to get him back on now, but he's buffering.
Yeah, I lost you. I don't know if it was on there or what, but I lost you.
Well, we thought maybe you got abducted there. We thought maybe you got abducted there.
Yeah, I got abducted. Went to another dimension to get some information. But you know, again, I've been in other dimensions, and I don't like to talk about it because it sounds crazy. And so they didn't necessarily need the pyramids to do that. But my body didn't travel in another dimension. My mind did. So the pyramids may have been a way to transfer your body to another dimension. I don't know, Star Trek, you know, where they beam me up, Scotty, to another place. It all looks like science fiction.
We have someone saying a lot of mercury was found under the pyramids as well.
Yeah, there was a lot of things that they believe it was able to, like a power plant, that it was able to produce power. And it's very possible. We don't have all the answers of what the pyramids were. There could have been multiple functions of the pyramids. Again, we don't know, but I'm given the information of no one has been able to duplicate the pyramids. And they're trying to build them with modern technology, like trying to cut a granite stone with a copper chisel and a granite rock. Let me tell you what, I'll give you titanium chisels and sledgehammers and mallets, and you still could not cut those stones and build the pyramids. Even with stones, even with cutting tools that were never dull. And so they did it with copper. It's just ridiculous. But see, they didn't do it the way we think they did. They did it by, again, it's called molecular structure. Just like when you change water into ice, you're altering the molecular structure of that material that makes it from a liquid to a solid. So they had the technology to turn a solid, let's just say, into a liquid. Because some of them stones look like they were almost getting ready to turn into water, where they're bulging out. And so, what is so hard to believe that they could do that? If you look at all the pictures of the telltale evidence, we know that the obelisk, and again, the obelisk is in the ground. It's in the ground, and they're cutting it, and you can see the scallop cuts of where they're cutting this out of the ground. Now, when they cut this thing out of the ground, how are they going to lift it out of the hole? They didn't have cranes or anything to get it out of the ground. So how would they lift it out of the ground? Well, again, they had to have access to levitation and just lift it up out of the ground through levitation. I find it not hard to believe at all. It's just that no one has discovered that property, but if they do, it would make total sense of how they moved all these stones and rocks without actually carrying them. And again, if you alter a stone and make it soft, then you can cut it with a butter knife. And now if the stone is soft, you don't even have to cut it perfect. You can press it against another stone that isn't cut perfect, and because it's soft and you push on it, it'll actually make a tight fit. Like they can't even get a razor blade through between these stones. Do you know how hard it would be to cut a stone, two stones, that precision, that you couldn't get a razor blade through it? And yet they built these pyramids, every stone like that, because they were liquefying the stone to a point where they would kind of melt together and there would be no gap. And they were altering the frequency of the stone so that these would actually kind of fuse together. Just like if you took a block of ice.
Now, you get on that frequency there. Somebody's saying, I'm curious if there is any correlation with the megalithic structures emitting 110 Hurwitz frequency.
Well, we've never discovered the frequency, or it's never been revealed. But see, the reason that we don't know about it, it's a weapon of mass destruction. Because let's just say I knew the frequency to turn stone into water. I could go up to a skyscraper and hit the tuning fork to the building, and all of a sudden it totally collapses. Just imagine the devastation you could do with that technology. And that's why the guy at Coral Castle never revealed it, because it could be used in the wrong hands as a weapon of mass destruction.
Yeah. Michael H. Barryball says, and the pyramids are on ley lines. Would you agree with that, Mel?
Yes. It's written in the memoirs that Coral Castle originally was built like 20 miles north towards Lauderdale. And they were developing Lauderdale because he was there in the 20s and there was nothing there. It was the ocean and it was waterfront property. Well, as Florida started growing and getting bigger, Lauderdale was becoming a bigger city. They were kind of closing in on him in Coral Castle, that he had done some research and he said that he missed let's just say the fault line of the magnetic poles by 20 miles. So he decided, because of the city moving closer to him, he moved Coral Castle 20 miles down the road closer to Miami because he was on a more direct fault line of the magnetism. And there's a story that a guy came with a big flatbed, which back then could only carry so much weight. And the guy dropped the truck off and he went to lunch and he came back in a half hour and the truck was loaded with stones from Coral Castle. Now, how did he lift all these stones, tons of stone, onto a flatbed truck when there was no cranes or machinery to do it back then? And see, this is documented history of this story of him. And so obviously he knew how to levitate the stones, and he just picked them up and put them on the truck and then reversed the cycle, and now they weigh what they weigh and moved them down the road. He moved the whole Coral Castle 20 miles down the road.
I think they had cranes. I think they had cranes in the 1920s.
Yeah, but they weren't capable of. They weren't capable of lifting that kind.
Yeah, the guy who created Coral Castle, I believe he used cones. He had cones in his hands, and that's how he did it, allegedly.
Well, he knew the secret. Just like cutting it. That device that he has in his shop with the tripod and the black box, that is the secret to levitation. That's the secret. He knew, like he said in his memoirs, he discovered the secrets of the Egyptians building the pyramids. He knew how they did it, and the only way he could build Coral Castle, he has stones that weigh up to 50 tons. And back in 1920, we had no equipment at all capable of lifting something that big, and yet he did. So obviously, and if you know anything about moving heavy objects, you have to be crazy to think that you could put it on a sled or rollers or anything like that. I did this when I was a kid. I moved a big stone in the backwoods of where I lived, and it was no bigger than an engine block, and it was a white marble rock. And it took me a week to move it about 100 yards. And so I have some background in trying to move something on a soft ground. And again, something 50 tons, you can't even get it off the ground, let alone move it, 500 miles or whatever. So
what kind of truck? What kind of truck in the 1920s would they have that could support all that weight?
Well, see, this is the other thing that I believe, along with changing let's just say, the density of the stone, they were able to change the weight with the same frequency. Because how could you lift a 50-ton obelisk? Now again, if you can levitate it, it doesn't have any weight because now, like two magnets, they repel. But the thing was, now he moved these stones 20 miles down the road, and back then they had these flatbeds with these trucks. Could you put a 30-ton stone on a truck and move it? I don't think so. So he probably also knew the frequency to turn the stone into a lighter object. And so now it's lighter and it's softer, and now you can transport it easy. And if you did have that technology, again, like Thomas Edison said, nothing is impossible. So Again, like turning water into steam. It's vaporized. Again, it's three forms. It's a solid, it's a liquid, and it's vaporized. And so now that's three different properties with one substance. Well, again, this is where we have to be outside the box with anything that we're trying to figure out, and especially the pyramids. They used to worship the sun. They called the sun Ra, and the sun actually is God in its purest form. It is the life support system of everything. Everything. If that sun went out, everything would cease to exist. The Bible says that God is a light so bright that if you looked at it, looked at him, he'd go blind. Well, look at the sun, you'll go blind. Also, scientists say that it's some type of plutonium or some other nuclear fusion that fire is burning through this like perpetual motion. Well, you know what? They're idiots. The God is pure energy, and that rock, the amount of fuel that it would take to make a fire that big would be enormous. And over 12,000 years that we know that the earth has existed, not billions of years because no one was here. And I don't care about carbon dating because God's up there laughing at man because he can make a rock 1 billion years old in 1 second. And that's the crazy part of God and understanding God is people try to put God in a box and you can't even begin to fathom the IQ level of God because there's not even numbers that can measure what he can do. And so in the Bible, it talks about the burning bush. The burning bush is when Moses went up into the mountains and spoke to God, and there was a bush on fire. And yet the bush was never consumed by fire. It was never even scorched, and yet the bush was on fire. I know that story is real, and I know that story is true because I've witnessed it. I've actually seen this happen. And so this is a gift that God has given me to show me the understanding that the Bible reads like a science fiction book. A donkey spoke. A fish spit out a gold coin. Jesus walked on water. He rose the dead. When you read the Bible, it's like a sci-fi book. Well, that's what God is. He's beyond all imagination. And that's where we have to open our mind that, again, creating life in just the universe. It wasn't just dust flying around. There's a favorite joke, science joke that I like. And in 100 years from now, the Bible says that God created man from dirt. So scientists in 100 years figure out how to make man from dirt, and they yell up to God and they say, God, we don't need you. We figured out how to make man from dirt also. So God laughs and he says, okay, let me see you. So the scientists start to grab up some dirt. And God says, wait a minute, use your own dirt. I love that joke. I love it. Because man already knows you cannot create or destroy matter. Because matter is God. Every bit of matter in existence is God.
The flower, we are all connected by the flower of life, Mel. And the flower of life, I believe, is God's gene. You know?
Well, God's gene, yes. Everything that exists is a particle of God. The Bible says that God created everything and nothing wasn't created that wasn't created by God. And I absolutely agree with that 100%. Everything that exists is a particle of God, but it doesn't make us God. It just makes us a particle of God. Just like my finger is a part of me, but my finger isn't me. My mind, my spirit is a separate entity of my body. And so, just like everything in existence, it's like a finger of God, a particle of God, but it's not God himself. It's just a particle of him. If you want to call him, it's not him or her. It's pure energy. And just like the sun, it's pure energy. And just like the bush was burning and it didn't need any fuel to burn. And so that's what the sun is. The sun is just a perpetual energy of God burning up there.
Facebook user is asking, what is the very first sentence in the Bible?
And that's another one. When God spoke and said, "Let there be light," is that the first? The first sentence is I don't remember what the first sentence is, but I think it was.
I believe the first sentence is, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth."
Right, that's right. God created the heavens and the earth, and then God spoke and said, "Let there be light." See, let there be light, and that's pure energy. And there was light. But see, this is the key word. When God spoke, what happens when we speak? We create vibrations. The only reason that we're able to hear someone speak is because our tongue and our voice is vibrations. And the ear is called an eardrum because when you beat on a drum, it makes a sound. Well, our voice is vibrations that are bouncing our eardrum that make a sound that we recognize that makes us hear voice. So when God created everything, he spoke it into existence. So what he's telling us, everything that exists is a vibration. Everything is a vibration. And there's a thing on YouTube, if you look it up, if you take a speaker and put a piece of cardboard or metal over the speaker and you pour salt or sugar or sand in the middle of the cardboard and you play music on that speaker, the salt moves around into figures. It changes shape.
Yeah, perfect design.
And perfect design and every vibration. So right there is showing us that vibrations can create images. And that's when God spoke and the vibrations created the images. But we don't have the frequency to create the image. Now, you're playing this music on a speaker and you see a flower and you see squares and you see circles. So we know that vibrations create images. And if you had 1,000 different vibrations, you probably could create, a fish or an animal or a tree, because everything is a vibration. But it's so advanced that we again are so minute in comparison to God's powers and knowledge that we're not even a fraction of what he's capable of. And so the pineal gland, which is in the middle, they call the third eye, is actually the antenna or the transmitter to reach the supernatural. And they talk about there's 4 phases of the pineal gland, which can be, let's just say, intuition, telepathic. I forget the 4 different phases, visions. I did a lot of research on the pineal gland when I started getting these powers and wanted to know about them and what they worked and what they consisted of. And I have all the senses of the pineal gland, and it's not something that I did. When I became possessed by the Holy Spirit, that opened up all the channels in my frequencies in my mind to access things that you would never believe exist.
Well, we're at the top of the hour now, Rick. Boy, that went by quick.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for coming
So
on the
do you-
show, Mel. It's been a pleasure to have you near
Yes.
us. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you to
Mel,
everyone
we'd
who
like
contributed.
to have you on again one of these days.
Yeah, I'll
We
try to stay in touch. It's just been so busy right now with my bikes and things going on. It was a real slow summer. It was so hot. I'm 4 months behind basically in work, and now I'm trying to catch up. But yeah, I'd like to come on the show and reveal some things, more information, and people can take it with a grain of salt, whatever. But if you listen with an open mind, a lot of this stuff, if you do your research, it's out there. And it's just that we're closed minded to a lot of this stuff. And we need to open our minds so that we can open these channels and receive these powers, because we have more than five senses.
Yeah, we got to think out of the box. Another thing we could do too is show some of them bikes that you build, which are pretty wild.
Yeah, well, what I'll do is I'm going to put some pictures together this week, and let's try to do next Thursday again.
Okay.
And over the week, I'll get some pictures together to send you, like the pyramids one where they look like marshmallows, and the ones where you can see their scallop cut, and just certain things that would, if you look at them, say, man, that makes a lot of sense. Like they weren't cut with a chisel. That it was almost like they took a big spoon and hollowed it out. And so I'm a wood carver. I know how to carve wood, and you use, rounded shaped chisels and stuff to cut out wood. And so all my skills and stuff have given me like a background in certain things that when I see something, I know how that was done because I've done something very similar to it or the same thing with a different material.
Right.
So, all right, I'm going to sign off. But thanks for having me on.
Yep.
And
we'll
I'll be talking to you during the week. And
all right.
Yeah, I'll send some pictures, and we'll have another session.
All right.
Yeah,
thanks, everybody. We're interacting.
Okay.
All right. See you all
Okay, and nice talking to you, Bradley. And see you next week.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.